Look at them, they whispered. The fat farmer and the stick girl. What a strange pair. In the quiet village of Ologun, nestled between rolling hills and lush green fields, there lived a young man named Tunde. His parents were no more, so he had to take care of himself. He lived alone in a small hut, far from the village center. But despite his size, Tunde was a hard-working farmer. Every morning, before the sun even rose, he would go to his small farm, till the soil, and tend to his crops. However, no matter how hard he worked, his farm never produced as much as the others. His vegetables were small, his fruits were not as sweet, and his soil seemed tired. The people in the village didn't care. Instead, they disliked him because of his body size and his looks. They would often sneer at him. No wonder his crops don't grow well. He eats more than he farms, they would say. Other farmers would laugh at him and say, Tunde, when your farm finally produces something better, come talk to us. Tunde didn't mind. He knew he was trying his best. He would take his small farm produce to Mama Iyabo's fast food joint. There he would trade them for cooked meals like pounded yam, amala, jollof rice or beans to eat, as the only food he knows how to prepare was roasted yam. Mama Iyabo liked Tunde very much because he was always polite, even when the villagers made fun of him. His friends left him because they thought he wasn't good enough. They would laugh and say, Tunde, you are too big for nothing and lazy. Look at your small farm and produce. When will you farm something as big as you are? They would mock him and laugh. During New Yam Festival, farmers would proudly display and show off the big yams they harvested. But Tunde with his small yams would quietly walk away. They would laugh and insult him loser, fat and lazy. Look at him, one of them said. Men are trading their farm produce for good money, but his will end with Mama Iyabo's one plate of amala. But Tunde ignored their insults. He kept working, kept planting, and kept hoping that one day things would change. The young girls of the village would giggle when he passed by. Who would want to marry such a big, fat, poor farmer? He can barely walk without sweating, they would say and laugh. Tunde tried to ignore them. He stayed kind, even when it was hard. He didn't have much, but he always kept his head up, even though life was tough. Tunde never stopped being a good person. He didn't get angry or shout back at the people who laughed and mocked him, because deep down, he knew he had something more important, his heart. Whenever he decided to take his farm produce to the market to sell, only a few kind-hearted villagers would buy his produce. Most would turn away, preferring the goods from other farmers. Though it hurt, Tunde never spoke a word in anger. He simply continued his simple life, believing that someday he would be rewarded for his patience. One morning, as he made his way to the farm, the sun was shining and the birds were singing. As he walked into his farm, he heard soft crying. The sound was coming from a tree near the edge of his land. Curious, he walked closer and saw a young woman sitting under the tree, hugging her knees. She was extremely thin, so thin that her clothes hung loosely on her fragile frame. Her shoulders shook as she sobbed quietly. "Why are you crying?" Tunde asked, his voice gentle. The girl lifted her head, revealing her tear-streaked cheeks and tired eyes. "People make fun of me because I am too thin," she said in a shaky voice. "They say I look like a walking stick, that I will break if the wind blows too hard." Tunde's heart ached. He understood her pain because he has faced same cruelty. "People can be unkind," he said. "They judge what they don't understand. People make fun of me too because I am too fat." The girl wiped her tears and gave a small smile. "Isn't it better to be called fat than a walking stick?" she asked, and they both smiled and giggled. "My name is Bimbo," she said. "I'm Tunde," he replied. And from that moment on, a friendship blossomed between them. He asked where she lived and promised to come visit her. And by evening, as the sun began to set and the stars twinkled in the sky, Tunde kept his promise. He walked to Bimbo's hut, feeling a little nervous but determined to see her. When he arrived, Bimbo was sitting outside cooking a simple meal. She looked up and was surprised to see him. "You really came," Bimbo said softly, almost in disbelief. "Of course," Tunde replied with a smile. "I told you I would come, and here I am," he said, smiling. They sat together, talking quietly under the stars. Bimbo told him of how she had moved to Ologun village few weeks ago, but no one wanted to be her friend because of her teen nature. "Same with me," Tunde said, "but we must not look down on ourselves, or else we will give our mockers more reasons to mock us. You are beautiful, special, and wonderfully made, Bimbo. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise," he encouraged her. "You are wonderfully made too," she said, and they both smiled, feeling something warm they had never felt in their hearts. Before leaving, Tunde gave Bimbo some fruit and vegetables from his farm. "This is for you," he said. Bimbo was surprised and touched. It wasn't much, but it meant the world to her. No one had ever given her anything like that before. And from that night on, Tunde visited Bimbo every evening. They would sit and talk for hours, laughing and sharing stories. Slowly they became closer. Bimbo no longer felt alone, and Tunde found comfort in her company. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, and they began to look forward to each evening, knowing they had found something special in each other. As the days passed, Tunde began to give Bimbo his farm produce, and in return, Bimbo would bring food to his hut, making sure he always had something to eat. She prepared not just anyhow meals, but healthy meals with lots of vegetables and fruits that would help to keep his weight on check and make him stay healthier and smart. Tunde appreciated her efforts. They would sit together, laughed, shared stories, and found comfort in each other's company. As time went on, Bimbo began to join Tunde at the farm, helping him plant and water his crops. She showed him new ways to care for the soil, and slowly his farm began to improve. The plants grew stronger, the vegetables became fresher, and for the first time, the villagers started noticing his hard work. But not everyone was pleased. They began to gossip, and whispers spread throughout the village like wildfire. People pointed and giggled whenever they saw them working together. Some even laughed at their friendship, saying maybe if he gives her some of his flesh and she gives him some of her thinness, they would both be normal. But Tunde didn't bother. He had grown used to the cruel words of the villagers, and now he had something they couldn't take away: his friendship with Bimbo. Bimbo, on the other hand, was not happy about the gossip. It hurt her to hear people mock her even more now. But whenever she was with Tunde, the anger seemed to fade away, for she could see that Tunde didn't care about the villagers' words. Rather, he made her feel valued and important. So she tried to be strong just like him, and together they found peace in their little world, far away from the cruelty of the villagers. Their friendship grew stronger, even though life wasn't perfect. They were glad they had each other. One day, as Tunde and Bimbo were returning from the farm, suddenly they came across Bisi and her friend Kiki coming towards them. The two friends stopped and stared. Then, with disgust in their faces, they began to insult them. "Look at them," they whispered. "The fat farmer and the stick girl. What a strange pair." The word cut deep, and Bimbo lowered her head trying to ignore them. But Tunde's heart burned with rage. He clenched his fist in anger. but Bimbo placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let them talk," she said. "They do not matter." He felt a relief wash over him, and he ignored them and they walked away. One evening, after a long day at the farm, Tunde and Bimbo sat under a tree, watching the sunset. The golden light bathed them in warmth, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. "Tunde," Bimbo said softly, "I have something to tell you." Tunde turned to her, noticing the hesitation in her voice. "What is it?" he asked. She took a deep breath. "I am not just an ordinary girl. I am a princess," she said. Tunde blinked, sure that he had misheard. "A princess?" he asked. Bimbo nodded. "I am Princess Bimbola of the kingdom of Iwara. My father is the king," she replied softly. Tunde's heart pounded. A princess? How? How could that be? She had walked beside him, eaten with him, laughed and cried with him. She had never acted like royalty. He thought deeply in his heart. "Then why are you here?" he asked, confused. Bimbo sighed. "In my kingdom, everyone judges me for being too thin. They say I am not beautiful enough to be a queen. My father wanted me to marry a prince, but I wanted something else. I wanted to find true love, someone who will see me for who I truly am," she said. Bimbo was the only daughter of King Adekombi and Queen Adeola of Iwara Kingdom. She had everything a princess could ever wanted: beautiful gowns, a grand castle, and servants who waited on her every need. But there was one thing that troubled her deeply: her thinness. No matter how much she ate, her body remained the same. While some might have thought this was not a problem, for Bimbo, it was a curse. The people of the kingdom would bow and greet her with respect when she walked by, but as soon as she was out of sight, they would whisper and giggle. "She looks like a walking stick," some would say. "I wonder if the wind can blow her away," others laughed. Their words cut through Bimbo's heart like a sharp knife. She longed to be like the other young maidens in the kingdom, who had fuller figures and never faced such mockery. Desperate to change, she started drinking herbal concoctions made by palace healers, believing they would help her gain some weight. She ate more food than anyone in the castle, stuffing herself beyond what her stomach could handle. But no matter what she did, her body refused to change. One evening, after yet another failed attempt to gain weight, Bimbo sat alone in her room, staring at herself in the mirror. Tears filled her eyes. "Why can't I be like everyone else?" she whispered. Her mother, Queen Adeola, noticed her daughter's sorrow and tried to comfort her. "My dear Bimbola, you are beautiful just as you are," she said softly. "True beauty is not in the shape of our bodies, but in the kindness of our hearts." Bimbo wanted to believe her mother's words, yet the whispers from the kingdom were too loud. As the years went by, she grew into a stunning young woman, but the whispers never stopped. When it was time for her to find a husband, many suitors came to win her heart, and Bimbola discovered that most of them didn't love her. They only wanted to marry her because she was the princess and her father was the richest king in the land. One day, she overheard two noblemen talking in the garden. "Why do you want to marry Princess Bimbola?" one asked. The other man laughed. "Because once I marry her, I will be rich. Who cares if she looks like a broomstick?" he said. Bimbola's heart shattered. She ran away before they could see her. And that night, she cried herself to sleep. Would she ever find someone who truly loved her for who she was? She thought deeply. And as time passed, Bimbo began to lose hope. She withdrew from public events and spent most of her time in the castle's library, reading stories of great heroines who had found happiness despite their struggles. One day, her father arranged for a grand ball, inviting noblemen from distant land in the hopes of finding a worthy suitor for her. Among the guests was a young artist named Adio. He had been invited to paint a portrait of the royal family. Unlike the others, Adio never stared at Bimbo with judgment. Instead, he treated her with kindness and respect. He listened when she spoke and made her laugh when she was sad. Curious, Bimbola asked him one day, Adio, do you not find me strange like everyone else? Adio looked at her with a soft smile. Princess Bimbola, you are like a willow tree, slender but graceful. You dance with the wind, and no storm can break you. Why would I think you are strange? He replied. For the first time in her life, Bimbola felt truly seen. She and Adio became close friends, and as time passed, she realized something. Adio cared for her, not because she was a princess, but because of who she was inside. And then one evening, as they stood in the palace garden, Adio turned to her. Princess Bimbola, I do not have riches or a grand title, but my heart belongs to you. If you will have me, I will cherish you forever. Tears of joy filled Bimbola's eyes. She had finally found someone who loved her for herself. She smiled and took his hands. Adio, you are all I have ever wanted, she said. When she told her parents of her decision, King Adekombi was hesitant. An artist, he asked, are you sure, my daughter? His face edged with concern. Yes, father, Bimbola said with confidence. He sees me for who I truly am, she replied. The people of the kingdom were shocked when the princess chose a simple artist over the wealthy noblemen, but she does not care about their whispers. Her father agreed and they fixed a date for her grand wedding with Adio. But few days before the wedding, a lady appeared from the neighboring village with a heavy pregnancy, claiming that Adio impregnated her and ran away. The revelation hit the princess like a blow, and everyone in the palace opened their mouth in awe. The king summoned Adio and asked if the pregnant lady was saying the truth. And after much questioning, Adio hesitantly agreed that he didn't know she was pregnant for him. The king felt a pang of anger and betrayal. He ordered Adio to leave his presence with the pregnant lady and asked never to see him again. Bimbola's heart broke as she felt disappointed by the man she had loved, and as whispers began to spread around the kingdom, she disguised herself in a simple attire and absconded to Ologun village. Tunde stared at her in awe as she narrated all her ordeal. You mean you went through all this even as a princess? He asked, and she nodded calmly. You are a strong lady, he said. And you are a strong man too, she replied, and they both laughed. So have you found someone who would see you for who you really are? Tunde asked curiously. Bimbola smiled. Yes, with you, she replied. Tunde's heart swelled with emotion. He had never felt more accepted and more cherished. All his life, he had been mocked, laughed at, and ignored. But here was a princess, someone who could have had anyone, choosing him. I hope we won't face another mockery and body shaming in your kingdom, he asked softly. I no longer cared about their whispers, Bimbola replied confidently. She had learned a valuable lesson that true beauty is not in how one looks, but in how one's heart shines. Before Tunde could say another word, a group of royal guards appeared, carrying a message from the king. The king had heard about Tunde and his daughter and wanted to meet him. The villagers were shocked when they saw Tunde leave for the grand palace. The fat farmer meeting the king, they whispered and gossiped, unable to believe it. At the palace, Tunde stood before the mighty king, his heart racing. You are the one my daughter has chosen, the king asked, studying Tunde carefully. Yes, Your Majesty, Tunde replied, standing tall despite his nerves. The king was silent for a moment before he spoke. You have a kind heart, and you did not judge my daughter for her appearance. That is the mark of a true man. Then the king smiled. You have my blessing, he said. Tunde could hardly believe it. He turned to Bimbo, who beamed at him with tears in her eyes. It was real. He, the once ridiculed farmer, was going to marry a princess. When he returned to his village, the people who once mocked him now praised him. His farm flourished like never before, and the same girls who had laughed at him now wished they had noticed his worth earlier. But it was too late. His heart now belonged to Bimbo. Their wedding was grand, a union not just of love, but of acceptance and destiny. The villagers learned a great lesson, that true worth is not in one's appearance or wealth, but in their heart and deeds. And so, the fat farmer and the slim princess lived happily ever after, their love growing stronger each day, just like the fields they had nurtured together. I hope you enjoyed this story that has so many moral lessons. Comment what you have learned below. Please support the channel by liking the video, share to your friends and family, and please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more. Thanks and God bless you. See you in the other videos.